Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 65 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show, the most comprehensive entertainment news show on the internet. I am, of course, Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. I hope you're all. I hope you're all doing well. I, I I know it's kind of a crazy world out there these days. So I hope everybody's okay. And if not, I hope that this show provides a brief break from whatever it is you're going through. Part of the reason I do the show is to talk about uh, the things that I love most, which is movies and television and entertainment, really. So I hope that this show brings some joy to people. Um, Before I get started, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you like this show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Uh, Hit that like button as well. Go ahead and spread the word. Also, if you have a comment, a question, or if you'd like me to talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the address listed in the description of this video. So, with that out of the way, let's get started with this. Um, so, one of, I would say, a director who has really had uh, a great deal of success recently is a director by the name of David Ayer, who has worked with Jason Statham a couple times. On he directed The Beekeeper with Jason Statham, and he also directed another Jason Statham movie called A Working Man. Um, um, and David Ayer has also uh, he directed End of Watch with Jake Gyllenhaal. He directed Fury, which is people like to refer to that movie as the Brad Pitt tank movie. Um, but he's enjoyed a great deal of success as of late, collaborating with Jason Statham, and evidently they are uh, going to continue enjoying that success together. They are going to be making another film together. This article is on CBR, published by Monica Coman. This article says Jason Statham and David Ayer are reuniting once more. The duo had success with two consecutive films, 2024's The Beekeeper and 2025's A Working Man. This article does go on to say that Statham has set a new film with with the Suicide Squad director. I try to forget that David Ayer directed that piece of crap movie. Um, but anyway, um, uh, Statham set a new film with the Suicide Squad director, the action thriller John Doe. The new film gives John Wick vibes and features a script by blockbuster screenwriter Zach Penn, who wrote Ready Player One and The Avengers. John Doe, as the title suggests, this article does continue. In John Doe, as the title suggests, Statham is set to play the man with no name. The film follows a man with no memory, no past, and no name, and only one face he can't forget: Eliza. Um, as fragments of his identity return, he discovers he was trained for a mission still in motion and is being hunted by the very people who sent him. With enemies closing in, John must choose between finishing what he started or protecting the one thing that makes him feel human: love. Okay, so I I like movies like this, where you know, rediscovering, um, like rediscovering who you are, or remembering your past life, and I like movies like that. The problem is sometimes they can be a bit cliche, and follow the same tropes and character arcs. Um, However, with David Ayer and Zach Penn involved in this, I feel there's a good chance that there's going to be something fresh with this movie. And I love Jason Statham. I mean, he's certainly um, been a top star in action films since I don't like the early 2000s. Um, and he certainly um, led the resurgence of action films. Um, I heard him being once compared to, like, he's the modern Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm like, it's tough. It's tough to compare. Yeah, I wouldn't compare Jason Statham to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Jason Statham does different kinds of things. But anyway, I heard someone say that one time, and I was like, I get your point. I get it. Um, this fragments of his identity returning. He discovered, he discovers all this stuff as his identity returns. Um, I like that, and again, I hope it doesn't follow the cliche kind of tropes. But again, with the creative people involved, I think this could work, and I'll see anything that Jason Statham's in, to be honest with you, and I really like David Ayer as a filmmaker. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Um, so jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about Jason Statham reuniting with David Ayer once again. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that I really like, as a film fan, I really like when actors and directors collaborate frequently. That obviously says a great deal about their working relationship. Um, and and So yeah, so jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about David Ayer and Jason Statham reuniting for John Doe. Okay, so this next bit of news. So you might remember from last episode, I was talking about this Miami Vice '85 movie that's going to reboot Miami Vice. And it's going to be directed by Joseph Kosinski. It's going to star Michael B. Jordan and Austin Butler. It's a movie that I'm really looking forward to. And I say that as someone, I know very little about the Miami Vice property, if you will. So there's been some news. I'm really looking forward to seeing the movie. But there's been some news regarding that movie. It has been delayed. This article is on MovieWeb, published by Richard Fink. Let's see. Universal Pictures, published on MovieWeb by Richard Fink. Universal Pictures has shifted its release dates, delaying its previously announced Miami Vice reboot, Miami Vice '85, to 2028. Deadline reports that Miami Vice '85 has been delayed from an August 6th, 2027 release date to May 19th, 2028. It takes the release date originally reserved for The Mummy 4, which that's the Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz. They're doing a fourth Mummy movie, which I am absolutely thrilled for. I know a lot of people are, but we've all been waiting for that. I can't wait. So Miami Vice 85 takes the release date originally reserved for The Mummy 4, which has since been bumped up to October 15th, 2027. So we're getting The Mummy 4 a year earlier and Miami Vice 85 a year later. Let's see here. Let's see if it says anything else about why. Oh, excuse me. Let's see if this article. So, the article doesn't give any details about why it's getting delayed. I do know that let me see here. I think Joseph Kosinski, as a director, I think he's got a film. No, he doesn't have anything. So the last movie he did was that F1 movie with Brad Pitt, and I was going to see if he's got something between now and Miami Vice, and he doesn't. I mean, it's probably there's no reason given. Probably just to make sure that they get it right, because the movie that came out in 2006 wasn't very good. So they probably just want to get it right. So yeah, I mean it sucks, but because I personally I never like when movies get delayed. But it just sucks. But they probably just want to get it. They want to do the Miami Vice property justice and get it right. So it sucks, but I get it. So jump in the comment section. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts and what those thoughts are on Miami Vice 85 being delayed. Okay, so this next bit of news is interesting. So you might recall from the last couple of episodes, I've been talking about this it's being billed as a culinary thriller, starring Charlize Theron, Julia Garner, and Demi Moore. It's called Tyrant. And it sounds really interesting, and I love the cast. And speaking of the cast, there's been more casting announcements regarding this movie. This article is on Deadline, published by Matt Grobar. So David Wheel, who is the director of Tyrant, he's also he wrote and is directing. This article says David Wheel has commenced production on Tyrant with 4 new additions to the LA-lensed Amazon MGM culinary thriller. Papa Essiedu, who is going to be Professor Snape in the Harry Potter reinvention series. They're reinventing Harry Potter. They're doing it as a television series on HBO Max, which I couldn't give the furry crack of a rat's behind about, to be perfectly honest. Anyway, so Papa Essiedu is going to be in this movie. Heated rivalry breakout Hudson Williams, musician Omar Apollo, who was in that movie Queer with Daniel Craig, and fashion and lifestyle creator Nara Smith. Character details are under wraps. So, okay, so Hudson Williams obviously has become an overnight sensation with Heated Rivalry. Papa Essiedu, who was in I May Destroy You and going to be Professor Snape. You know, I'm familiar with him. I haven't seen his work. So Omar Apollo, who was in Queer, you know, and Nara Smith, I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of these people who I'm not too familiar with in this movie. I'm looking forward to seeing their acting chops, especially Nara Smith, who is not known as an actress. I have questions about that, like Omar Apollo, who obviously has some experience being in the movie Queer, which was directed by um, um, give me just a second. Uh, it was directed by Luca Guadagnino. Um, but you know, I always have concerns about um, actors, people from other professions transitioning into acting, transitioning into film and television. I always have concerns about that. That's just the kind of person that I am. Um, you know, so Nara Smith, let's see what her acting chops are going to be. You know, it's this movie's good. It's said to be a high stakes thriller, kind of like imagine like if every a lot of people it's being billed as like the culinary version of Whiplash. If you guys have seen Whiplash with Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons, which is fantastic, it's awesome. It's being billed as a culinary version of that. So I wonder if like it would be kind of cool to see Charlize Theron kind of play a character like J.K. Simmons did in Whiplash. That would be wild to me. But I'm looking forward to this. Again, I have questions and concerns about a couple people in this cast, seeing as how they've had have very little acting experience. But um, you know, I am looking forward to this movie. Um, and you know, Hudson Williams again. The standout for me is Hudson Williams. I mean, he's become an overnight sensation to say the least. Um, so yeah, has he been in? I'm wondering. Uh, yeah, I don't know if he's. Yeah, I don't know him from anything else. Um, yeah, yeah, I don't know him from anything else, but I'm sure that will change. So anyway, so jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about the cast announcements regarding um, Tyrant. So um, this next bit of news is a little interesting. So um, in in gearing up for um, the Supergirl movie, uh, I've been catching up on the DC Universe stuff. This, you know, the the there's the new DC universe, which is headed up by James Gunn and Peter Safran. I've been catching up on all the stuff that came out before. I just watched Creature Commandos again. Like, I binged it last night for like the third time. That show is fucking awesome. That show's great. Um, and the DCU is really it's been on a hot streak. It's certainly starting out a lot better than its predecessor, the DCEU, that fucking Snyderverse. Anyway, um, so one of the things when James Gunn made the announcement, I think back in 2021, of like, oh, this DC the first time that there's going to be a DC shared universe like Marvel. This is the first time that it's ever been done in film and television in DC, as far as films and television based off of DC Comics. This is the first time that it's ever been done. And one of the things that James Gunn said that I really loved was, like, they're not going to do, they may have plans, but nothing's going to be greenlit if they can't get the script in line, and plans may shift around depending on how development goes and what the script process goes through. And one of those, for those who don't know, one of those projects, one of the films that was going to be one of the films that was going to be the first phase of this DC universe was going to be called is called Gods and Monsters. So it's Creature Commandos, Superman. What else? I have notes. What else is there? Creature Commandos, Superman, Peacemaker, Supergirl. They're doing that Lanterns show on HBO Max, and the Clayface movie. Clayface wasn't really a part of it, but they got this amazing script, and I think there's more projects, but I don't know off the. And one of the movies, I don't know what else is part of Phase 1 off the top of my head, but one of the movies that was originally announced, was a movie based on it was based off of The Authority. They were going to do a movie called The Authority, based on the comics. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. So what's interesting is that The Authority didn't originate in the DC universe in the comics. It debuted it as part of this, I think it was called Wildstorm universe, and then it eventually became they did the Flashpoint event, and the Authority became part of the DC universe because of Flashpoint and the New 52. But there was going to be the original plan was going to part of the original plans was for there to be a movie based on The Authority. And there's been some development regarding The Authority movie. This article is on CBR, published by Jamie Lovett. So this article, So DC Studios. So there are a lot of I want to clarify something here before I proceed. There are a lot of headlines, a lot of other YouTubers talking about running with the story that the Authority movie is canceled or scrapped. That is not true, and I'm going to get to this in a minute. So again, this article is on CBR, published by Jamie Lovett. DC Studios co-head James Gunn has offered some clarity on the fate of The Authority, one of the first projects announced for his and Peter Safran's DC universe. On Threads, Gunn dispelled rumors he would have written or directed The Authority, saying the moment he seemed to imply otherwise was just a normal slip of the tongue. I would have never had time to do this, and although I know this is a popular theory online, I never had an intention of writing or directing The Authority, Gunn explained. He then went on to lay out why the film never came to be at all, even without him at the helm. The script wasn't quite there, but more importantly, it didn't work in terms of the larger DCU, both in terms of the story and practical concerns, Gunn explained. He did leave room for some hope that The Authority could happen sometime down the road. Maybe someday, not soon. So, again, there's some other YouTubers and a lot of headlines running with the fact that, The Authority movie has been canceled or scrapped. That is not true. It is, for lack of a better phrase, it's been kind of put on the back burner. James Gunn says, maybe someday, but not soon. So, I have kind of two minds about this. One is that it sucks that we're not getting an Authority movie. The Authorities, they're a bunch of badasses. Okay? So it sucks that we're not going to get an Authority movie. Now, my other thought is, and probably the more realistic, my more logical part of my brain tells me, if James Gunn can't make it work, like you can make the plans, you can have an outline, but if you can't tell the right story, and if it's not going to fit into your original plans, and if you can't get the script in the right place, then put it on the back burner and save it till later. And that is the right decision. It seems to me James Gunn has said from the get-go, if we can't get we're not going to greenlight anything without a finished script. And if you can't get the script in line, then we're not going to do it. But more importantly, he says that they couldn't make it work in terms of the story and practical concerns. Okay, that makes sense. If you don't have the resources or the time or if you don't have the right script, then it's not a good idea. And that's just the way it is. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, but James Gunn's making the right move. Now, what's interesting is that so there were elements of The Authority in the Superman movie that came out last year. The engineer who was in that movie, I think the engineer, if I remember correctly, is part of the Authority, and then you had the Planet Watch, the Lex Luthor Planetary Defense Force. So there were elements in there, but you can you didn't really, the engineer worked, like you could, just because you don't do an authority movie, like the engineer in the Superman movie worked, that element worked on its own. That character worked on its own. You didn't need the authority to understand that character. But but again, if you can't make it work, you can't make it work, and maybe just put it on the back burner and save it till later, which it sounds like they're going to do. So a lot of people don't like this. A lot of people don't want to hear it, but James Gunn's making the right decision. Yeah, it sucks that we're not going to get an authority movie because I think it would have been awesome, but I totally understand why it's not happening. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on James Gunn's or a DC Universe authority movie uh, being put on the back burner. Okay, so this next bit of news is kind of eyebrow raising. So for those who don't know, there back in 2014, there was a comic series co-written by Quentin Tarantino and Matt Wagner that was basically it was a crossover comic about characters from Django Unchained and The Mask of Zorro. And it's yeah, it was a comic series. And so in 2022, so basically, let me just read this article here, because this article talks about it far better than I could. So there's this article here on Variety, published by Rebecca Rubin. So let me just see here. I want to make sure I get my information correct. Sorry. So there was the comic series co-written by Quentin Tarantino and Matt Wagner, and it was going to be a crossover. It's a crossover comic series involving characters from Django Unchained and The Mask of Zorro. And about halfway down in this article, Rebecca Rubin writes, Tarantino has talked about the Django meets Zorro tale for years, at one point courting the comedian Jared Carmichael to write a draft of the script. That version was shelved for unknown reasons, with Carmichael telling GQ in 2022, "It's actually an incredible script that came in from that Django Zorro that I would love for Sony to figure out, but I realized the impossibility of it." Antonio Banderas has previously confirmed that Tarantino approached him to star in the crossover movie. he says, Quentin Tarantino talked to me, I think on the Oscar night in 2020 when I was nominated for Pain and Glory. We saw each other at one of those parties, Banderas said earlier in 2022. He just came up to me and I was like, in your hands? Yeah, man. Because Quentin just has that nature to do those type of movies and give them quality. Even if they are based on those types of B movies from the 60s and 70s, he can take that material and do something really interesting. So, that, as of 2022, other than that, there's been no movement on this crossover film based on the comic until now. So going back up to the top of this article, Monica Coleman writes, Brian Helgeland, an Oscar winner for LA Confidential, has been tapped to write a crossover film about characters from Django Unchained and The Mask of Zorro. So this film has been revived and is going to be written by Brian Helgeland. Now, this article, she does say, although based on the 2014 comic series co-written by Quentin Tarantino and Matt Wagner, the untitled movie will revolve around a new story. Plot details aren't clear, though the film is expected to follow the exploits of Django, the bounty hunter played by Jamie Foxx in Tarantino's 2012 revisionist western Django Unchained, as he forms an unlikely alliance with the legendary masked vigilante known as Zorro, portrayed by Anthony Hopkins in 1998's The Mask of Zorro and Antonio Banderas in 2005's The Legend of Zorro. The project is in early development at Sony Pictures. A director hasn't been set, but Tarantino won't be stepping behind the camera. This article does say that Jamie Foxx and Banderas haven't signed on to the film, which is, as of right now, not surprising. Okay, so this sounds awesome. This sounds awesome. It would be nice if Quentin Tarantino was involved more in the film, but he's a very busy guy, and I get that. Brian Helgeland is an incredible writer, obviously. It would be really, really cool to see Jamie Foxx and Antonio Banderas in this movie. It would be really, really cool. Theoretically. And I say theoretically because neither one of them have signed on yet. Let me just talk about the two separate movies, because Django Unchained is fucking awesome. I saw that movie on New Year's Eve when it came out, and it was awesome. And Jamie Foxx is so good in that movie. I think Jamie Foxx doesn't get enough credit. I don't think Jamie Foxx gets enough credit for how good he is in that movie, simply because he's... I think a lot of people come away from that film talking about how great Leonardo DiCaprio is in that movie. And I don't think Jamie Foxx gets enough credit for how good he is in that movie. You know? He's amazing. Antonio Banderas coming... And Django Unchained is awesome. That movie's awesome. Antonio Banderas coming back as Zorro. That would be awesome. Now, I love The Mask of Zorro with Antonio Banderas, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Anthony Hopkins. I fucking love that movie. It's I believe, yeah. It's directed by Martin Campbell, who 3 years prior to The Mask of Zorro, um, directed GoldenEye, the James Bond movie, the first James Bond movie with Pierce Brosnan. And I I fucking love GoldenEye too. And the Mask of Zorro is awesome. I haven't seen, what was the second one? The sequel, The Legend of Zorro. I haven't seen that one. I heard um, it came out in 2005. I heard it was terrible. I heard it was terrible. And I'm like, well, that sucks just because of like how much I love The Mask of Zorro. It would be Martin Campbell was on quite a hot streak after GoldenEye and The Mask of Zorro, and then years later he's an incredible action film director. And Antonio Banderas is so awesome. So theoretically, it would be kind of cool to see Jamie Foxx. It would be really cool, really cool actually, to see Jamie Foxx and Antonio Banderas come back as Zorro and Django. You know, it would be really cool for Jamie Foxx to tell Antonio Banderas, the D is silent. The D is silent. I think if you're going to do it, you have to get them, right? Like, I can't see anybody else playing those two characters. And I think if you're going to bring Jamie Foxx and Antonio Banderas back, you have to write it as an age-appropriate story. Like, it would be really awesome to see Antonio Banderas as an older Zorro. That would be kind of cool. And Jamie Foxx as an older Django. That would be cool. It's so Brian Helgeland's going to direct it, so it's been revived, and Brian Helgeland's going to write it, not direct it. He's going to write it, so it's going to happen. It's just a matter of, will Antonio Banderas and Jamie Foxx come back? I'd like to see it. I don't know. I don't want to see it if it doesn't have them in it. So we'll see what happens. Theoretically, on paper, this sounds awesome. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about a crossover, a Django and Zorro crossover film finally happening at Sony. What are your thoughts? Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so this next bit of news is something that is interesting. So there's an actor not recently, but I had never heard of up until about 10 years ago. He's an actor by the name of Mark Rylance. He was in this Steven Spielberg movie starring Tom Hanks called Bridge of Spies. And he's brilliant in it. I believe he won the Oscar for supporting actor for Bridge of Spies. And then he starred in he he was in another Steven Spielberg movie, which is one of the few Steven Spielberg movies that I haven't seen. He he played the big friendly giant in the BFG movie, the animated BFG movie, which was directed by Steven Spielberg. I heard the movie's pretty damn good. And I'm like, well, of course it is. You know, it's Steven Spielberg. And he's, you know, so, but I had never heard of him before Bridge of Spies. But he's done a lot of great work. And he is going to be he's going to star in and make his feature film directorial debut. This article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman. This article says, Oscar and Olivier winner Mark Rylance from Bridge of Spies is set to star in and make his feature directorial debut with Nice Fish, alongside five-time Oscar nominee Michelle Williams. Five-time Oscar nominee Michelle Williams. Jim Lichtscheidel from A Serious Man, and Isabella LeBlanc from True Detective Night Country. This article, let's see. This article does go on to say, oh, excuse me, I don't know why. Anyway, so this article does go on to say that the synopsis reads, hoping to rekindle an old friendship, childhood buddies Ron and Eric set out for a day's ice fishing on the last day of the ice fishing season. However, they discover that now in adulthood, their comradeship is on thin ice, which easily cracks. One man behaves like a child, the other man like a too grown-up. Imagination and reason divided. With the help of three mysterious women they meet as they travel further on the ice, can Ron and Eric find a way to reconnect, reunite, and enjoy a new friendship? And more importantly, catch that elusive giant fish as the ice begins to melt. Okay. This sounds really interesting. It's based on Nice Fish originated as a stage play, which earned an Olivier Award nomination. You know, I love this. This sounds great. I'm not familiar with the story, but this sounds fantastic, and it sounds like the idea of, you know, their friendship. It sounds like you know, they're going ice fishing and their friendship is on thin ice. It sounds, you know, you get the allegory, you get the metaphor there, and that so I love that. You know, and I love Mark Rylance. Michelle Williams. I'm such a big fan of her. 5-time Oscar nominee. I grew up watching her on Dawson's Creek. You know, she was in Brokeback Mountain. You know, what was the movie that she did with Casey Affleck? Hold on. Manchester by the Sea. She was in that. You know, Shutter Island with Leonardo DiCaprio. Blue Valentine. she was even in the Tom Hardy Venom first couple of films. She even I'll say this. Uh, I had I didn't like The Greatest Showman all that much. I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine. Um, the I thought that movie had a lot of problems. Michelle Williams wasn't the cast wasn't wasn't the problem, and Michelle Williams, man, she's a star, man. I mean, she really is. I love her, and this sounds the fact that she's going to be in this as well as Mark Rylance and the rest of this cast. I mean, this I am very much looking forward to this, and then also you know this idea of a friendship because one person hasn't grown up and one person has grown up too much. I think that is going to speak to a lot of people. And I say this. Look, I'm not familiar with the play. I'm simply going on the synopsis of this film. I think that synopsis speaks to a lot of people. Like sometimes you just want to look at your friend, and I've done this, and I'm even I've done this with people. I'm just be like, dude, like really, like how old are you? you know, um, and I think that kind of I think that's going to resonate. I really do. And Mark Rylance making his directorial debut. I mean, he's worked with incredible directors, so I'm sure that he's going to. I'm sure that this is. I think this could be really really. I think it's going to resonate again. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this movie, Nice Fish. Mark Rylance making his directorial debut. Let's see here. Okay. Excuse me. So, this next bit of news, I love psychological thrillers. I love thrillers in general, but thrillers that really mess with your mind. I love that genre. And there's one coming, um, starring one of my favorite actresses. Um, this article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman. Um, this article says director. I'm going to butcher this person's first name. Um, Aofi McArdle. Aofi McArdle is lining up Foxfinder, a psychological thriller set to star BAFTA and Emmy Award nominee Tessa Thompson from Creed. She played the Valkyrie in in Thor Ragnarok and the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Golden Globe and Emmy winner Owen Cooper from Adolescence, and two-time Emmy winner Eben Moss Backrack from The Bear. This article continues. The synopsis reads, the lives of Jude and Sam, a grieving couple clinging to routine and survival, are upended when William, a coldly devout government foxfinder, arrives at their struggling farm with a mission to root out the designated enemy, the fox. As paranoia festers and absurd regulations tighten their grip, suspicion replaces love, and truth itself begins to warp. I love movies like this. Movies where, you're kind of along for the ride with the characters, like finding out what's true and what's not, and is there a conspiracy, paranoia. I love that. And, this happening on top of, it sounds like, an already grieving couple. Uh, uh, Maybe they've lost their child. I don't know. Um, this, just there's going to be a lot of emotional weight to this movie. It sounds like, um, and I love that. This sounds fantastic. I love this. This sounds great. I love Tessa Thompson. I first saw her in Creed, um, and again, like I said, in the Marvel stuff. I haven't seen her. She's done a lot of interesting stuff uh, since those movies. I need to see more of the stuff that she's in, but I really love her. Eben Moss Backrack, who was on The Bear, he also played he played Ben Grimm in the Fantastic Four First Steps. He played Ben Grimm. He played the Thing. I thought he was great. I thought he was great. There's that scene with Reed and Ben when Reed is like, best pilot in the world right here, and Ben Grimm's like, yeah, best looking, he means, and I'm just like, okay, like, come on, that's funny. By the way, if you guys didn't see Fantastic Four First Steps, you should, because it's great. Um, it um, let's see here. It didn't it I think it underperformed a little bit at the box office. I don't know why. But if you didn't see Fantastic Four First Steps, it's awesome. And Eben Moss Backrack is no pun intended, fantastic in the movie. That movie's awesome. I love this cast. I wonder. So I think Tessa Thompson and Eben Moss Backrack are going to play the grieving couple. Um, at least guessing by they're similar in age in real life. So there's that. This sounds fantastic. Again, this everything everything's this grieving couple. They're clinging to. They're still trying to survive, and then on top of this paranoia government conspiracy thing happens, and it's just like, when it is it too much to handle? Like, does this paranoia conspiracy thing make them a stronger couple? This sounds fantastic. So jump in the comments section and let me know your thoughts on um, Foxfinder. All right, so um, let me. Speaking of, actually, let me do something really quick. Okay. Moving on here, there's this crime thriller coming. And there has been cast announcements regarding this upcoming crime thriller, and it's going to be called My Darling California. It's going to start filming late late summer, in late this summer. This article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman. This article says Avengers and Materialists star Chris Evans is joining the crime thriller My Darling California, the next project for writer-director Elijah Bynum from Magazine Dreams, who directed Magazine Dreams. As we told you last fall, the movie will star Jessica Chastain, Chris Pine, Mikey Madison, Charles Melton, and Don Cheadle. Chris Evans, so originally, Josh Brolin was going to be in this movie. Chris Evans, Josh Brolin had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. Chris Evans is going to replace or succeed Josh Brolin. You can't replace Josh Brolin. You can only succeed him. So Chris Evans is going to take over that role. The article does go on to say that the film is set in Los Angeles, 1980. The film will chart how a single crime weaves together the lives of a TV host, his restless wife, a country music idol, two small-time crooks, and an ex-con, all of whom are chasing the promise of a better life. Filming is being lined up for late summer/September. Okay. This sounds really, really interesting. I love movies where one event where the plot revolves around a single event that affects multiple people, and I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, but like one singular event or one single event ties multiple character arcs together, and like if anybody has seen the movie Crash in 2004 that had Don Cheadle in it, and it was this I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It was this crime drama that it features racial and social tensions in Los Angeles, and it talks a lot about. It's a movie that I find the movie quite incredible, actually, because it talks about racial issues in the country, even now. But yeah, if you haven't seen Crash, and it that's a movie that I think about it, where you have multiple characters, and they occasionally interact with each other, and they're affected by the same thing, and they're interconnected. Also, Pulp Fiction, even though the Pulp Fiction is a movie that characters are interconnected. And this sounds like it's going to be that kind of a movie where this single crime interconnects different characters, and I love that. And I really like Chris Evans. I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he is, because so many people know him as Human Torch from the first run of Fantastic Four movies. So many people know him as Captain America. He's a wonderful actor. He was in the first Knives Out movie. He was in, I think he was it. Oh, what? What was the name of? struggling. What was the name of? Oh, The Losers. The Losers is good. Um, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. He's awesome in that. Snowpiercer, which is fucking awesome. Snowpiercer's, and he's great in that. He's I think he's wonderful. Um, you know, Jessica Chastain, obviously, she's ever since Zero Dark 30. I mean, she's amazing, and she's one of my favorite actresses. Um, and I'm really Mikey Madison, obviously coming off the Oscar win for Nora. Um, I'm starting to follow her career. She's going to be in the remake of. I'm brain farting today. Brain farting today. What's the Mask of the Red Death? She's going to be in the remake of that. Um, I really like Chris Pine as well. Obviously playing Captain Kirk in the J.J. Abrams in the Kelvin timelines Star Trek universe. Um, he was in Hell or High Water, which is fucking fantastic. Um, um, what else has he been in? He was in Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman movie. And he was that is one of his and it's weird to say about that kind of a movie, but that's one of his best performances. Um, um, yeah. Um, you know, uh, he was in. I've been talking a lot. I've been talking a lot to a couple of coworkers recently about. I have a couple of coworker buddies who are really into Dungeons and Dragons, and I mentioned them. I was like, "Have you guys seen the more recent Dungeons and Dragons movie?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "That movie is awesome. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. That movie's awesome. If you guys haven't seen that, and he's wonderful in that. He was he was in this movie. Chris Pine was in this movie called This Means War with Tom Hardy and Reese Witherspoon, and it's pretty funny. It's kind of this it's this spy comedy, and it's decent. It's decent. Don Cheadle. So okay, real quick. I don't know too much about Charles Melton from May December. I don't know too much about him, so I can't. This will be a chance for me to see him in a movie. Don Cheadle. Okay, I know this is going to sound weird. The first time I ever saw Don Cheadle was in Rush Hour 2. And I know that sounds like, wow, really? Don Cheadle, you remember him from Rush Hour 2? That's what. And I'm like, yes, that is not the first movie that I think of when I think of Don Cheadle. But yes, he was in Rush Hour 2. Obviously, playing a roadie, Colonel Rhodes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Um, there's a movie that he's in that I've never seen called Hotel Rwanda, and I need to see it. I've heard it's fantastic. I think he got an Oscar nomination for it. He was in Crash, which I previously mentioned, and he's brilliant in that. I mean, he barely has any lines in the movie. He doesn't have very many lines in the movie, and he can do so much just by not saying a word. If you want to see a really good, just acting performance, like as far as facial expressions go, watch Don Cheadle in Crash. He's brilliant. He can do so much just by not saying a word. He's amazing. Um, and the Ocean's 11 movies with George Clooney. I mean, he's fantastic. I don't. I he's I want to. He should have an Oscar by the time he retires. He should. Um, but that's just my opinion. So anyway, I love this cast. I love this cast, and again, this story of how one single event um, brings multiple people together. I this sounds wonderful. I love this. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on My Darling California. All right, so a couple more pieces of news here. So, um, going back to the Mask of Zorro. It evidently there is going to be somewhat of a Mask of Zorro reunion. Uh, Two cast members from that movie are going to be in a new movie together. Um, this article is on Deadline, published by Zach Nateem. Catherine Zeta-Jones has signed on to join Anthony Hopkins in the feature A Visit to Grandpa's. This article does go on to say that this film is inspired by a short story from Welsh poet and author Dylan Thomas. The film is said to follow a young boy sent to spend one summer with his charismatic and wildly eccentric grandfather on a remote Welsh farm. The synopsis reads, expecting dull days and strict rules, the boy instead stumbles into a world of delightful chaos and imagination, where outrageous stories are spun and a world of wonder, memory, and mischief unfolds. What begins as a reluctant visit becomes a magical journey of connection, discovery, and unexpected joy. This sounds wonderful. This sounds wonderful, and apparent. It's not stated, but I guess Catherine Zeta-Jones is going to play the mother, and her son goes to visit Grandpa. Who, I mean, who wouldn't want Anthony Hopkins to play their grandfather? I mean, that's so, like, that makes me smile. Okay. So, let me just read this again. What begins as a reluctant visit becomes a magical journey of connection, discovery, and unexpected joy. Okay. This this synopsis sounds like the perfect movie for someone like me. I I've talked about this before. I am my wife refers to me lovingly as an aging man child. I uh, um, I am a child at heart. I have always maintained try to maintain, it's a struggle sometimes, but I try to maintain a sense of wonder about the world. There is a curiousness that I have about the world. Um, I find that I think it's important to maintain a childlike sense of wonder about the world. I don't think I don't there there's a line in the movie Tropic Thunder. You know, you never go full R word. I'm not going to say it. I never go full adult. Like I don't know how to do that. You know, I am a child at heart. I'm one of these people that I kind of every once in a while look up at the night sky and just be like, I bet there's something out there. I've always, again, I've always tried to maintain a sense of wonder about the world. And um, so this synopsis speaks to me on a very personal level. Um, I don't know about anybody else, but it speaks to me on a very personal level. And, you know, who better to do that with than with your grandfather, than with grandpa? I mean, that this sounds wonderful. Um, I love this cast. I love Catherine Zeta-Jones. I wholeheartedly wish that um, we'd see more of her, because I think she's wonderful. Um, uh, she obviously won the Oscar for Chicago, and she's awesome in Chicago. She's awesome. Obviously, Mask of Zorro. She's, even in a movie like Entrapment with Sean Connery, that movie's not very good. But Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones, like if it weren't for the fact that they're in it, that movie would be unwatchable. I love her. She's one of my favorite actresses. Anthony Hopkins is I cannot emphasize enough, is a very is a very inspiring person for me. Um, I a few years back, um, I was dealing with a lot of mental shit. I was going through a really, 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 and I've talked about this before, but a few years back, um, I was going through I was suffering a lot. My anxiety and my depression was really, really bad. And my mom would send me these inspirational videos from Anthony, like from Anthony Hopkins. And like Anthony Hopkins didn't do them for me, But like there's these videos of Anthony Hopkins just talking like, believe you can do it. You can get through it. You know, and he's just it's just videos of Anthony Hopkins just randomly talking on camera, being saying inspirational, cool shit. And it's just like, man, you were already one of my favorite actors, but now you're just like now you're providing a pick me up. Like how awesome are you? You know, um, one of these days I'm gonna get around to watching so many more of the films that he's been in. Yeah, I love Anthony Hopkins, and he's just he's just inspiring to watch. And I don't know what I could say about Anthony Hopkins that hasn't been said already. Um, he's a fantastic actor. Um, One of my favorite. I remember seeing The Elephant Man when I was a kid. Maybe not when I was a kid. It was not when I was a teenager. I remember seeing The Elephant Man when I was a teenager, and that a lot of people. I don't know how many people realize this, but the Silence of the he was not very well known when he did the Silence of the Lambs. He had been in a couple high profile films like The Elephant Man, but um, that is Anthony Hopkins being in Silence of the Lambs was a case of literally becoming an A-list actor overnight. And we are all the better for it. I'm trying to think if there are any films that I can recommend with Anthony Hopkins that maybe aren't very well known. He did this movie Fracture with Ryan Gosling. Um, and I have heard. I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, it's called Fracture. Um, and I've heard it's pretty good. I've heard it's pretty good. What else? There's a movie. There's a movie that I saw him in that I loved. It's called The World's Fastest Indian. The World's Fastest Indian, and it's about um, it came out in 2005, and it's great. And it's about Burt Monroe, who's the speed bike racer who set the land speed record at the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. And I've been there. My family's been there. My sister and I got a picture taken in front of the sign that says this is where the land speed record was broken or set. He's a fantastic actor, and he's been such an inspiration to me personally. Like I'll watch anything he's in. I mean, even fucking Transformers. He was in what was it, Transformers: The Last Night. And I'm like, come on, like. But anyway, I love this. I love this. I feel like this is going to be the perfect movie for me. Um, but jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on uh, um, A Visit to Grandpa's with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Anthony Hopkins. All right, one final bit of news here. So, um, you might remember from, I think it was my last episode, I talked about this director by the name of Curry Barker, who did this movie called Obsession. Um, that uh, it got really great praise out of the film festivals, and it hits theaters on May 15th. And he's going to be directing this new installment of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, which franchise, which I cannot wait for. I think that I want it to be good so bad. But in between Obsession and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he evidently did this new horror film called Anything But Ghosts, which recently wrapped production. This article is on Joe Blow, published by Kevin Fraser. Bryce Dallas Howard has joined the cast of Anything But Ghosts, a mysterious new horror film from Obsession's Curry Barker that recently wrapped production. Howard stars alongside Aaron Paul, with Barker also acting in the movie, in addition to directing and co-writing the script with frequent collaborator Cooper Tomlinson. Unfortunately, plot details are being kept under wraps because, of course, they are. I like Aaron Paul. I do. It would be nice to see him in something that's a massive hit. Yeah. I really like Bryce Dallas Howard. Let me see here. She was in, the first time I saw her, was hold on, let me see here. The first time I saw her was in, she was in 2 M. Night Shyamalan movies. One of them was pretty good, and one of them was terrible. The first one was The Village, which came out in 2004. And then she was in Lady in the Water in 2006. I like The Village. I'm one of the few people that do. Lady in the Water is terrible. She is fantastic in that movie. She also played Gwen Stacy in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3. She played, she was in Terminator Salvation. She was in the remake of Pete's Dragon. she, and obviously playing Claire in the Jurassic World trilogy. Um, I think her most famous, I think her best performance. She was in the Elton John biopic Rocket Man with uh, Taron Egerton, and she's fantastic in the movie. She's also become uh, quite a good director. She has directed numerous episodes of The Mandalorian and uh, the Book of Boba Fett, the Star Wars Disney Plus shows. Um, and obviously, being being the daughter of Ron Howard, uh, there you're picking up those directing chops is probably going to come naturally to you. um, but in all seriousness, um, if you guys should look up the episodes of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett that Bryce Dallas Howard directed because they're great. They're as they're some of the best episodes of The Mandalorian and certainly the best episodes of the Book of Boba Fett are directed by her. I really like her as an actress and as a director. Um, and I really like the fact that um, she's going to be in this Anything But Ghosts. Um, and I think, given her, I wanna make sure I choose my words carefully. I think um, the experience that she has had in this industry over such a short period of time and the success that she's had over such a short period of time, being in a film, it speaks highly of this new film director, Curry Barker. It speaks highly of him that someone the caliber of a Bryce Dallas Howard is in this movie. Because as an actress and as a director, I don't think she would be involved in this film if, especially as a director, like sometimes when you have two, sometimes when you have an actor or actress on set who has also been a director, those two minds work together really, really well. And I think it speaks highly of yeah. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think Obsession is going to be good. I hope this Head Full of Ghosts is going to be good, and I think this guy Curry Barker is going to become very, very popular very quickly, very soon. So jump in the comment section and let me know about let me know your thoughts on Bryce Dallas Howard and Aaron Paul joining Anything But Ghosts. Well, that'll about do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys continue to enjoy the show. I will be on next week, but I don't know when off the top of my head. But I will be back next week. So yeah, I've been catching up on watching some shows. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment section or send me an email. I hope you guys continue to have a good rest of your day. And as always, until next time, I will see you at the movies.